Welcome to Dare, the show for startup leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who dare to shape the future. Dare is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, OEN, and Darwaft, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is excited to welcome John Jackson to the show today. He's an IT and cybersecurity expert with over a decade of experience solving complex tech problems for businesses of all sizes. He founded his company, Bytagig, to provide premium IT and cybersecurity services, making top tier resources accessible and affordable for companies of any size. He's a member of the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, and we're super happy to have John with us today. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ned, thank you so much for that warm welcome and intro. Appreciate it. Happy to be on here today.
Yeah, so tell us about what you do with Bytagig.
Yeah, so we're based in the Portland area. As you said, we are an outsourced IT and cybersecurity service provider in a fractional regard. So, also meaning the fraction of a price of hiring a full department of IT and cybersecurity professionals. And so, the benefit to organizations, both small and medium, is that they don't have to pay for all that and hire and train and manage and monitor all that like they would if they had their own internal staff. We do that
Yeah.
for them.
Well, I was just listening to Nate Bargatze on the Emmys, where he does this kind of send up of the invention of television. And he's talking about all the unintended kind of side effects of television today, like streaming and the History Channel that plays, alien stuff. And I was just thinking back to the beginning of the internet. I don't think we anticipated all of the cybersecurity challenges and the bot attacks and denial of service attacks that we see now. There's a lot there. What have you learned over your career working in cybersecurity?
Yeah, there's what I've learned is that there's nobody who's really immune just by means of their size or their industry. Meaning we could talk about a nonprofit who's all about doing good and giving back to the community. It doesn't matter. There's still going to be a target for cybercrime. Same thing with the size of an organization. Doesn't matter how small or big or large organizations of all sizes are being targeted. And the reason for this, of course, is because at the end of the day, hackers or threat actors, whichever term you prefer, they're all about finding ways to automate and scale their operations just like any other business model. And so they're really just trying to find how can we automate phishing campaigns? How can we automate ransomware attacks? And
Mhm.
of course, you hear about all the big ones like the Jaguar was just recently in the news, TransUnion, all these different large organization attacks, but also those are like state actors that are, targeting big ones and they're spending time to get into them, right? But there's a lot of vulnerable organizations that we've found who haven't really built up a strong defense and are easy targets for these automated tools to go out and attack.
Yeah, well, just the lightning round here. If you could inform our viewers, our listeners, can you give us a quick definition of ransomware for those who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so ransomware is essentially threat actors taking control of a person or organization's files and
Mhm.
encrypting them with a key that they only have that key to unlock the ability to use and view those files. And they want some sort of a cryptocurrency payment made to them to be able to access those files again. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's usually a significant amount of money that most people don't have readily available in their bank account.
Right. So, by the same token, can you also give us a definition of phishing?
Yeah, so phishing it's usually email based, emails impersonating someone or attempting to elicit some sort of a response or somebody to click on something or to send credentials or do things to then be able to gain access to the target's email inbox and to be able to do things in their email. For
Right.
example, sending out mass emails to everybody in their contact list.
And what's interesting too, to these types of attacks and other attacks as well, is that often it's social engineering more than just like a computer virus that ends up on your system
Hmm.
or malware.
Exactly.
It's social engineering. So I'm going to kind of drill in there. What is social engineering?
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, these people are essentially scam artists, right? They're trying to get somebody to fall for something and engineer them. So, for example, one way would be, getting a weird email from your boss who's saying, "Hey, I need you to go to the store and buy these Apple gift cards and don't tell anybody." but it's not really from them, right? It's from some Gmail account with an alias with their name on it, or a text message that's, supposedly from the boss, but it's not from his number or whatever.
So,
LinkedIn
so,
account,
so
Facebook account.
yeah. So just to be really clear about this, what social engineering is doing is leveraging existing systems of trust and exploiting that existing trust and then building value for the hacker on top of that trust, right?
Mhm. Yeah, but it could be also that's a component of it for sure. Yeah, like somebody I know, right, is sending me this. But what about somebody I don't know who might be trying to fish me or social engineer me because I am, let's say, for example, somebody's trying to do some sort of a financial scam and say, hey, we've got this special job for you. And we're going to give you these. We're with NVIDIA and we're going to give you a $400,000 salary. You just apply here, but you send us your resume and things like that. That could also be phishing, right? Like that's and it could be social engineering because it's preying on somebody's desire to make a $400,000 salary or
Yeah.
click here and apply for this low interest 0% rate loan or something like that. Like there's things that are trying to lure people that even could be something from someone you don't know, and that's still social engineering.
Ah, got it. So it's building on human relationships in some manner.
Yeah, but it's also building on, like, sometimes the desire for something. Or also, like we've seen with a lot of especially in senior
Mhm.
people who prey on seniors, where they are maybe scaring them. That's another one that we've seen a lot, or young people too. The ones we've seen with like somebody's trying to scare a senior is like they call them up and they say, "Hey, we're with Microsoft support. You owe us $150, or we can credit it back. We just need a remote into your computer real quick." Well,
Ah,
while they're remoting the computer, they're loading it up with who knows what, all kinds of malicious things, and they're not with Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't call and say those things, or PayPal. I've seen similar things. And there's been stories too of like, hey, like a threat actor sends an email and says, hey, so and so, we have webcam recordings of you watching this inappropriate stuff on your computer and doing all these things. And if you don't pay us some sort of a hush money or whatever the right term is, extortion fee, essentially, then we will release the recordings to everybody in your network and tell everybody about it. And so there's those are things as well. It's like it's not somebody I know and trust, but there's that little bit of doubt in sometimes somebody's mind, like, what if somebody did see me doing something, and recorded it? So that's another term. It's another form of social engineering is this fear factor, right?
fascinating. So I'll ask you kind of a silly question, which I'm sure you're going to answer in the negative. In this movie I saw recently, The Beekeeper, there was this guy who actually took down a whole like hacking consortium who had stolen money from someone by using some of the techniques that you've described. And he wreaked vengeance on this hacking consortium. I can't imagine that you're that kind of guy, John. So instead of wreaking vengeance on a hacking consortium, what do you actually do to protect people?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just as a side note, real quick, before I go into what I do.
Yeah.
But usually, traditionally in the US, this has been something that we leave up to the authorities to do, right? Like the FBI, we actually had a summit once, a cybersecurity summit, where we brought in an FBI cybersecurity field tech from the Portland office here. And he talked about literally how he did disrupt and go chase down cyber criminals in even other countries.
Well, so he
Um,
got to chase the actual criminal, like not just online, but he actually went there.
Yeah, because
That's
there was
awesome.
like a Russian hacker who was attacking Oregon victims, and so the Portland field office was the one designated because there was other victims in the U.S. as well, but Portland field office was the one who led the investigation into this person, and they put out an Interpol request. And at the time, this was before Ukraine and all that, right? So the Russians were freely flowing into Europe, and this guy wanted to go on vacation, and he went to Holland, and he got nabbed on this Interpol request. And so then my friend at the FBI got to go fly over there and extradite him out to Oregon. And I believe he's still currently serving time in a federal facility here in Oregon somewhere. So,
Wow, that's exciting. So sounds like that guy really got the exciting part of the job. What's your part of the job?
so while I'm definitely not chasing down bad guys, but what I am doing is working with organizations and businesses to build up their defenses and to make it much harder for somebody to break in and steal.
Great. And so when you're hardening a system, or say that I came to you with a small company and I said, we have 20 employees. Some of them are always in the office, some people work remote. What steps would you take to start to help my company be more secure
Yeah.
and protect our assets?
Great question. So, yeah, what we do typically is we'll say, hey, look, you have this kind of information. Where is it being stored? Is it being stored locally on machines? Are you having putting things in a shared like OneDrive or a SharePoint, Dropbox, whatever? What kind of email accounts are you using? And make sure that everything gets set up in a way that it's all conformed to a unified platform and system, right? So what we've seen sometimes in some organizations where maybe some devices aren't joined to the organization in the Microsoft ecosystem, right? Or if they're all in Apple shop, joining them all into the Apple ecosystem of management, right? And I'm speaking in terms here so that people don't, I'm not just going to throw out tech geeky terms because that's just not what I like to do. But so that there's a unified management platform for all these devices, right? And even if it's a mixture of both. And you mentioned both, a remote or an in-person office scenario. And so what works great is management tools that we can deploy to bring those all under one system, one umbrella. And then we can do things like looking for, all companies need an asset list. All companies need to know what they have under their umbrella, under their management, so that they can accurately track that, see when they need to update it, see when they need to replace them. And then we go from there and we say, okay, what about your email system? What about your data management? All these things need to be under one management system so that we can then accurately track who has access to what. Because you would not believe, Ned, some of the horror stories I've run into where people had access to things they shouldn't because nobody understood or knew what the permission structures were, or when you move a folder over here that it automatically opens it up for the whole company and you may not want that whole folder to be open for everybody. It's incredibly funny sometimes to see how that all works out. But so what we do is we work to create a management system so that we can manage their technology for them, help them manage their risk as well. And that's where the cybersecurity component comes into it. So with the management software and the management tools that we can put in place, then we can deploy things like cybersecurity tools. We can deploy new applications for a new user who just started and get them all set up with whatever they need to do their job, right? They need Zoom, they need Office, they need Slack. What do they need? What does
Mhm.
every standard issue employee need in the company? So that there's a uniform system of applications. Again, we've seen hodgepodges all over the place where like there's no standard issue device, there's no standard list of applications. The more you can standardize these things, the better it will be for the organization to manage it. And then also things like when you're talking about a hybrid organization, right? A lot of those users working from home have no protection on their network. In a typical office environment, you would see like a firewall, a little device sitting on the shelf or in a closet somewhere that's helping protect the network from threat actors and reduce the amount of risk to the network. So where we help organizations in a hybrid environment like that is like it's even worse in a home situation. Like, well, it's just my home network. There's nothing wrong. Well, your kid may be playing Minecraft in the next room on a computer you have no control over. There could be some robot from China that's hooked up that's mopping your floor, scooping up the kitty litter. And there's all these things that connected to home networks, like some cheap Chinese camera that, somebody hooked up and because it was on sale. Like, I'm not here to bash all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, as an organization, you want your network, that stuff should not be infiltrating your company network. You don't want those things attached to the network because what? There's vulnerabilities coming out all the time where, hey, this firmware needs to be updated on this camera because threat actors can get into it and then they can spread across the entire network. So segregation of the network is important. That's why we offer a lot of our customers a tool that they can just install on their company devices that regardless of where they go. There's like a what's called a zero trust network infrastructure. And that basically means that don't trust anything else that's on the network if it doesn't have this tool installed on it. If it's not under management, if it's not operated by the company, then the two can't talk to each other. I don't want my home camera system talking to my work computer.
Yeah.
And so that way we can help organizations, regardless of whether they work in the office, work at home, working at a Starbucks, working at a Hilton, working at the airport, going to PDX, doesn't matter. That protection goes with them wherever they go.
So, if someone is working for a state agency or is working for a larger company, I assume these types of decisions are made every day by their actual IT department, correct?
That's the idea, yeah. And kudos to state agencies because they've got a lot on their plate when it comes to their internal IT systems.
Yeah.
Um, they are, and they're a constant threat. I mean, I should say they're facing constant threats and they're a constant target. So, there was a incident. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, where we had the state DMV had a breach, right? And it all boiled down to is the software system that they use called Move It, and it had a somebody had discovered a vulnerability in that software system, and there was a patch pushed. But the time to install that patch in the window of time that it took the state IT systems to update the DMV databases that were using Move It and to push
Yeah.
that patch, there was already somebody who had found the vulnerability within their systems and had exploited it.
Oh my
Uh,
God. So how long is that window of time?
it was a matter of, I think, less than 48 hours when the initial like notification was published that says, "Hey, you need to update this," and when the state of Oregon systems got infected.
Wow. Boom,
Um,
right?
yeah. So that's again where I say, like, my hat's off to these individuals working in our state IT agencies, because you have to be very quick to move and address those. And it
Yeah.
takes time when you have massive data center like the Oregon DMV has to be able to update all those things without causing downtime.
Yeah. Fascinating. So it's a big challenge.
It is. And so, yeah, to your point, state employees, folks like that, their internal IT department is always working to say, hey, what can we do to better protect our employees and thereby our citizens? It just takes longer for them to adapt to change than, let's say, somebody in a small business sector who can go out and purchase a software and deploy it on 10 machines tomorrow to better protect their organization, versus if you're talking about thousands of machines, the whole state procurement process that they have to go through, right? Like, that's, if you've ever dealt with that, which I have, it takes a half a year just for them to make a purchasing decision.
Right. So who has time for that, right?
Yeah, not when the threat actors are constantly changing and vulnerabilities are constantly changing. Yeah, it's a major battle and it's very hard for them to keep up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so you're part of the Oregon entrepreneurial community. So I'm curious what that community has been like for you.
Yeah, we have our participation's been pretty light, but it is great to be around other entrepreneurs and organizations in Oregon, just because it seems like, when you hear about startup communities, everybody thinks of Silicon Valley or they think of Austin. And so it's neat to see, well, like, there actually is a thriving startup slash entrepreneurial community here in Portland, Oregon, and to get to rub shoulders with people of similar mindsets.
Yeah, it's really great to have other people to bounce things off of, isn't it?
Yeah. And just to, go hear somebody else talk about what they're building, what they're doing, see other startups in the ecosystem and learn how we can support each other.
Absolutely. So I need to ask you our last wrap up question. What do you dare to dream, John?
Ned, I dare to dream that all organizations, small and medium and large, have access to good defense systems that can stop the cyber criminals from stealing.
That sounds like a great dream. So basically, that everybody would be safe out there, huh?
Yeah, there's been terrible things have been done because of cybercrime. And, we think a lot about physical crime and physical realm. And you were alluding to earlier how nobody really understood when the internet came out, when computers and all these things, nobody really forced it. I think there was a few people who may have said, well, maybe this is a possibility. And not very widely was it expected that we would see this era of cybercrime, and it really does devastate a lot of businesses. 2 to 3 weeks of downtime can wipe out a lot of businesses. It can
Yeah,
make them really hard, make it really hard. And that is, and 2 to 3 weeks of downtime is not, that's the average. That's really like
that's the
l-
average. Wow.
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it can take longer. And, if you're able to bounce back and recover quicker than 2 weeks, you're on the small minority side. So, the idea here is that when there's an incident, that cybersecurity insurance companies want to come in and do forensics and they want to do an investigation before you start wiping anything, before you start resetting, because they want to find out how it happened to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So, like, all these things slow down that process too.
Got it. Well, thank you. This has been really, really instructive. Really appreciate your time and your perspective on cybersecurity. And if you would like your company to benefit from John's expertise, contact Bytagig. We'll put their link in the show notes. And happy to have you in Portland. So glad you're here.
Thank you, Ned. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for taking time to talk to me.
Thanks to our guests today for their insights into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We wish you all the best in your startup journey. The Dare Show is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network and by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. Visit us at oen.org or at darwaf.io. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.